a daddy Mac. Dance 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Rusty's chained to the mines, digging deep day by day. But when Option Omega releases new features, he's free to come out and play. Option Omega, you're trading home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
Gentlemen,
good morning.
Yeah, CPI, big numbers.
Yes,
Big numbers straight away. What was CPI? CPI clearly moved the market. We're down 1 point.
You guys remember those days of news that was not triggered involving the word tariff or the word Trump, and it was a PI in it, a PPI, a CPI. Yeah. The April CPI printed 2.3. Expectations were 2.4. Core was in line at 2.8. That's straight from the desk, Troy.
Straight from the Option Omega newsroom upstairs. They just brought us down.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. And the market is unched based on it. So tomorrow, Powell? Am I?
No, I think I want to say Thursday or Friday. Let me see here.
What's he doing Thursday?
Thursday, PPI and Chair Powell at 8:40 in the morning. But they got Fed governors all week. But Powell is, I think, Thursday. And
I mean, they're not going to say anything. I mean, these guys now, they're just like, wait for the data.
So, Thursday will be the interesting one because PPI is pre-market like this is. Although PPI doesn't usually move it like CPI typically. And then Powell's also going pre-market. So Thursday could be a little bit fun. But I think that's the big news thing besides today, this week, at least that's planned. Of course, in this era, what does planned mean anymore? Like, if you get a tweet that says buy now, does that mean more than the news does? I mean, that is the news, right?
Listen, those Fed guys, it really is. They're just like, hey, I'm sure some of the ones that are perhaps more cocky, used to being able to move the market a little bit. I'm sure they're a little disappointed now that like they can't really move it, because what are you gonna say? I mean, they're gonna have to sit there and be like, well, the market's basically back up to where we were.
Yeah. And it looks like VIX. I mean, it looks like we'll open around 18. And if we open up and over the next couple of days, we could easily get to 17, which we haven't seen 17 in almost 2 months. I think like the end of April. So it's just like, you almost think about this, Troy and Matt, like, did this really happen? This whole tariff thing, what was it, like a dream? It's just like, we have this problem. Not really. It's over.
I mean, yeah.
What happened?
So the year opened up. We opened up right around, 5850, 5900 for the year. Like that's where we were.
Or the SPX.
SPX.
Okay.
I think it was here. I think we opened it right above 5900. And you look this morning and like we're going to open at 5850. So like, what are we we're about to be unch for the year, as Troy would say. I mean, and yet on April 8th and 9th, we were sub 5,000 on that SPX and maybe headed farther south. So again, lots of volatility at the end of the day. The people who are not suffering the volatility are the people who just look at their retirement accounts once a month. If they looked at the beginning of April and then at the end of April, they would have missed a lot of April excitement, huh?
That's right. Yeah. It's
it's these things come and go. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure I felt that way. The second half of March and April COVID, just being like, well, that was fun. you know.
Yeah, and
But
the
I mean,
mentality has changed. Yeah.
yeah. So today, I mean, I'm glad this is why this show exists, really, for my own personal benefit. Is I really thought there was a lot more going on this week. When you lay it out like that, as you were talking, I just sold some positions just to get out of them because I had some longer gamma positions because I thought the market was going to move. And so,
Well, I put a RIC on yesterday
yeah,
because I'm thinking, okay, you got the news coming, and just the fact that we were up 3% yesterday, we got to get something. But I mean, it looks like today's could be as dead as a doorknob.
Yeah.
But I mean, things can change quickly too, though, right? I mean, and that's the, we can get into the whole mechanical trading, which is what you like, because when you get the emotions in, I see this and I say, well, let's get out of that RIC. It's not going to move.
That's right.
But at 220, when we were up 100 or down 100,
yeah, that's right.
Why did I
put that on?
Trust the data. And in honor of trusting the data, folks, just so you know, getting ready for the mechanical trading at Options Omega will be coming out soon. I watched 4 short videos from Moneyball last night.
Oh, there you go.
Especially the original where you had all these salty, in the boardroom, all these baseball, coaches and legends, and they bring in, what's his name? The data guy. They bring him in and they're like, can you tell this guy to leave? He goes, no, he's staying. And he's just whipping out these stats at these guys. And they're like, why are we? And so whenever I thought, was it Pitt? He did a great job acting.
Yeah.
Every time he'd ask a question,
Billy Bean.
Why are we keeping him?
Yeah.
On base percentage.
He gets on base a lot. Do I care if it's a walk or a hit?
Yeah,
you do not.
I love that. There's just such a good.
Your goal shouldn't be to buy players. It should be to buy wins. There's a lot of analogies to backtesting and Moneyball. So many analogies, because if you think about that show, and it's a great watch if you've never seen it. Even if you don't like baseball, if you like numbers at all, it's fantastic.
It is.
And the whole idea is that they are really the data-driven dudes, and the culture that they go into is a culture that's very appearance-based and emotion-based, really. Yeah. And it's a fascinating watch and is Hollywoodized, but there is the core of a true story there, and the concept of using data to measure the true performance of these athletes and how to build teams around them is now in every sports team in every major sport, probably to some degree, and some teams heavily. And championships have been won 15, 20 years ago when not many people were doing that. The teams that were doing it won championships that were unexpected. It's crazy. OO Show recommends Moneyball, the first of our official recommendations of movies to watch.
Official sponsors of
not appropriate for children under 12.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. Well, speaking of automated trading, let's continue on our path. Right. I was going to show a calendar, a reverse calendar I did, but now I closed it while we were talking, and I don't want to look at it ever again. I want to burn it.
It obviously did great.
Well, it would have done great. I felt great. Well, this is a double talk about Troy's genius here. Like last night, I was sitting on the porch. We have a curve in front of our house, so we have a lot of drunk drivers hit the curve. A lot of wrecks.
Volatility. You're in a high volatility environment.
I am VIX Avenue, and I was sitting on the porch, as is my custom, smoking a cigar, watching the police clean this up. Yeah. And I was looking at this calendar, and I put it on, and I tried to put it on, didn't get filled at a good price. And I thought, well, never mind. So I woke up this morning and it was on because Uncle Troy didn't clear the order. I just left the order standing. So I thought, well, that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind that trade at all. And put it on. Actually, I mean, why am I doing this? Why am I just telling you this? Look, we got time real quick. I'll just show you what this is.
Yeah. I was just going to ask.
So did you put this on after? This is a manual trade, discretionary trade?
This is discretionary trade. Then we're going to get to the real trading. So basically, this is a reverse calendar. And so what is this? This is the 5,700 put expiring May 23rd and the 5,650 short put expiring May 30th. And so you look at this and you think, okay, well, I could make money going up. I could make more money if it goes down. But here's the danger in this type of trade is if you look at time expiring, you have, a window. And here's the thing. You don't want to sit on this trade. You talk about long gamma and suffering. You don't want to sit in this trade.
Yeah.
This trade is a brutal trade. So this is my like market moving trade. If I think the market's going to move, I put this on.
Yeah.
And, you can backtest this and it works pretty well. But the hard part is with backtesting, you pick your spots. So you have to pick your dates and you can't just willy nilly put this on.
Now, let me ask you, this is what the product, E-mini, right?
Yeah, E-minis.
So where was it when you was it like 50, what was the price?
I think we were down 10. So, we were right here last night.
So you're 50, 58.
Let's say 58, 55.
So your theta wasn't, and what was the duration of each of them?
So the shorts are the 30th, May 30th, and the longs are May 23rd.
Okay, so your negative theta for today wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't terrible. It was like $200, but
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it's not great, but because it's a negative theta, but
yeah,
it's.
But this is the danger. If once you're not automated, once you're not kind of like using data and you're doing discretionary, like I'm going to keep this on and watch this all day in option strat so that I can. This is how stupid I am.
No,
I really thought like here's my notes for this trade. Big week. Big week. But it's not a big week. That's why I took it off. So I'm going to watch this go to $40,000 profit. This is my custom and just look forward on it. But
can we talk about this whole backtesting discretionary thing? Because you just made a super interesting point, Troy.
Please.
So there are many flavors of trading and options trading. And one of the things that's super interesting is to see how people use backtesting. So myself, I am not as smart or as good of a prognosticator or guesser, can't read the tape to save my life, can't read markets. And so I trade mechanically. And so I use a backtest and I try to execute the backtest as close as possible. And I use automation to do that. And that's what I use it for.
Moneyball.
Yeah,
you're the poster child of Moneyball.
I'm the guy who said I wanted to see player valuations. I asked you to do 3. Yes. How many did you do? 47. That's me. I'm that guy.
I love it.
Because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, that's right.
But here's the thing. There are people in the OO community who don't use backtesting at all that way. And what they do is use backtesting to validate an idea as being a good idea or a bad idea.
Okay.
And then they look at their spots to put on trades. And those can still be automated as well. But it's a super, super interesting discussion because it's totally valid. Yeah. And the phrase trust the backtest is thrown around on Option Omega a lot. And I've been a lot of the throwing, right? Like I trust the backtest. After years of running many backtests and many thousands of trades where I compare the backtest to the trade, I trust the backtest. But here's the thing. There are people who simply want to look at a backtest and they want to see the winners, the losers, the risk. And they can look and say, well, I would have never put it on in this situation. I'm choosing my spots. And there are backtests out there that are super valid to prove a concept that are backtests that may not look good to anybody else, but the person who's doing them, and they're doing them for a reason, and they're doing them to prove a concept. So Troy, what was you said that you can backtest this idea, but this is a complicated options trade. If you're new watching this, reverse calendar, this is an advanced trade. More Greeks than King Euro, right? In Indianapolis. The best
and it's high.
Euros.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, it's a high margin. If you're not in a like Troy did it in E-minis, if you were to do this in SPY or SPX,
right?
Troy, the margin would it would be not prohibitive.
It would be prohibitive to some people. Yeah, for
some
sure.
people, and and prohibitive just means to me, it screws up the yield. Whereas if Troy does this and it hits, when you look at the capital that he had up for the trade, it's a wonderful yield. But go ahead, man. You were talking a little bit about.
Yeah, Troy, what can you talk about that concept for a second? Like the idea of you validated the idea using a back test, but you just entered it without you just entered it and you just managed it.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things are happening in this, to the point. And let me speak as someone who maybe takes the other side of that, to Matt's point, the two types of back testers. I have plenty of trades that I just put on. I don't think about it. The back test works. I just put it on, right? Like I've got a ton of calendars that work that way. I automate them. I don't think twice about them. Then there's the trades where you're like, okay, I don't want a long straddle, and for various reasons. And people are like, why not do a long straddle? And like, well, just for some different Greeks, blah, blah, blah. Like it's long-winded. It's a discussion over a coffee shop. This is what you do like on a Sunday in Italy. I would imagine you just drink a coffee and talk about your options Greeks. And so what you can do is you can say the whole point of a black swan is to say you only need this idea to work once or twice to validate it. You don't need a lot of validation, because you're not trying to increase MAR. It's something that you would never put on until you see it validated. And so you go into a back test, you say, let's say for instance, CPI, and you say, I want to test CPIs. With an idea, honestly, I don't do that. I'll look and just see if it just works in general, and it'll work. If I have had such stupid ideas sometimes that literally they don't work at all. Like it will never win. If I find one that works, I then go in and say, okay, well, let's look at some specific dates of like closer to when I would put this on, and I do that, right? And so to Matt's point, I think there's tons of ideas of saying like, what would this have looked like with the data? Like this is what the graph is showing me, but what it would have looked like. Because you can look at a graph all day and you can be like, wow, if we drop 5,500 points, I'm going to make $16,000.
5,500 points.
Yeah. Well, if we drop down to 5,500, we're going to make 16,000 points. Like, well, cool. You probably won't. Like, and why? And so that's the back test is a good validation source to like look at a trade log and be like, what would you have actually gotten out at that price target? And things like that. And it helps you validate then, like, what should I set as price targets? Because right now this is just a graph. This is just a blank canvas. But back testing allows you to go in and say, well, what would happen if I took 10, 15% profit, 20% profit? Mm-hmm. And so I did something similar like this type of trade for Liberation Day, but I took profit really fast. And the reason for that is I had a back test that basically said you should take profit and not hold it. Now, if I would have held it, I would be not here right now. But that's a different, in
a good way.
In a good way.
But you can never know.
But to the point, if I held it and we were right here, if it hadn't done anything, I wouldn't be here either. But in a bad way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, someday I'll tell the story of my GameStop contracts for mid-January 2021 instead of mid-February 2021.
Yeah. But Matt makes this great point, and this is the case. I've seen people who absolutely are like, trust the back test, and there's a couple people in the world that are like that, and it's a mindset that you're trying to get into.
Shout out to myself.
Shout out to you. Shout out to yourself. But to the point, with every head bowed and every eye closed, have we ever closed a back test early?
Well, I'm also shout out to myself. I did this yesterday.
Okay.
So confession time. And,
I love this.
So we had a weird situation yesterday in that the market moved, checking the notes, 180 points. I don't have Trading View up right now or anything, but I think 3% plus.
Yeah, 3%.
And so, I had a couple weird things. I had one back test that is a little bit long, like a week out, and the strikes were like so different than the back test. The automation didn't put it on, which was the right move. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, this isn't really the back test because the strike availability is so wonky. I mean, we finished at what four? Was there a strike at 45 yesterday where we finished? There wasn't one at 35. It looked like we were going to pin a strike where there wasn't an options contract. How weird is that?
It happened a lot yesterday. Strikes all look
yeah.
At
so hopefully the money makers, truly the money makers, the market makers got their strikes together. But while we were talking, I had a power hour trade and it went on, but it wasn't like it was fine. But the reason I'm confessing here is I looked at it and I was like, well, it went on exactly how I wanted it to, but it wasn't really the back test. And in the idea of like the exact strikes and the exact DTE, like when have you ever had a power hour trade where you can't find strikes around it? Well, never, but you did yesterday. So I closed that one in 5 minutes because I was like, it's just not really the back test. And had another trade that I closed early because because of the move so early in the trade, I ran the back test and it was a higher MAR with a profit action to close it at the profit level it was at than to let it ride. So I both trusted the back test and I try not to do that. I try not to back test mid trade because I think in general, it's a really bad philosophy, but I have done it a couple times in the last month because we've had 6% moves in a day, 3% moves in a day. So when you have a trade that's up a ridiculous amount right away, you can back test that. So I did. So I both did that. And then I took off trades that, weren't really the back test just because of the weirdness of a 3% move. So,
well, and Matt, you bring a great point. I mean, you're in the back testing, you're testing for most of the time, the last 3 years, right?
No, some of them more than that.
Okay.
But some of them, like I think yesterday I had one that was the one that I closed early was like a 5-year back test. And wow. I don't think in 5 years we ever had a time where like the strikes were supposed to be really close to the money. And like, because we didn't have at the money, like they were close, but it just wasn't really the back test. So
yeah,
again,
but I think, and it's also recognizing when you say it's recognizing, okay, what has happened the last 6 weeks? And as you go over the last 5 years, say, mostly up market the last 6 years, except for some brief down periods, and say, okay, if we're getting something that is, I don't want to call it an anomaly, but something different, maybe in that scenario, right, where we haven't had candles like this in decades, right, and we haven't had movement like this, would that be a period where, hey, it's okay to back test it like you did in that example during the day?
Yeah, I mean, I know careful.
It's tough.
I'm careful about doing that, and it takes something really extreme for me to adjust a trade mid trade. And you can do it on the automation platform. Like, there's lots of options for managing a trade that's already on. So that's what I used it. I just, instead of letting a trade go on for another week when I was already at nearly all of the profit, the back test backed that up. It was a clear difference in MAR, like a clear difference in MAR. So I was like, okay. I mean, it in that case, it validated my feeling. I just, as a practice, I don't like back testing mid trade because that's the whole point of building backtests, is trying to build a backtest that's robust, that's seen a lot of data points. The great thing about April is we got all these new data points that we've never seen before.
That's a good point.
And people got to see how their setups did during a different level of volatility. These very volatile environments, they don't, you had the yen carry trade, you had COVID, you had Liberation Day, but those are all really good to get data points. Because they're just not very many. It's really hard to test crashes because there's just not that many.
For the next big short for Troy, now we have better data.
We've got more. You have more of an idea.
Yeah.
So we'll do a bunch on hedging and the idea behind back testing hedges. But Troy, did you have a back test that you wanted to show today?
Yes.
Hit it.
Okay, let's do it. So we've been talking about short-term trades that are small account size. Shout out Steven for just working diligently. Steven. And he has worked his butt off yesterday. I don't think any of this is, well, I'll explain one thing I did that could he gave me the idea for it, so shout out to him. But and then Sojeku, shout out Sojeku for taking the trade. We'll be looking at that later this week. But about here's the thing of talk about trust in the back test. If you're new to options, A, you're probably still not listening because the reverse calendar scared you away. And then B, TDBT, trusting something that you have no idea what we're talking about. We have a back tester. We have a back tester that goes back to 2013. So that's this way of looking at data to see what a trade would do. And we've been using a small account. So say you're getting into options, but you don't have a ton of money. We're starting with a $5,000 allocation just to show there are trades that we think would do well that you're not risking your entire account on. A lot of people, when you go through a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of fintech guys or financial guys, they're going to come on and they're going to be like, all you need is 5,000. And you're like, cool. Or they might even be like, all I need is $500. I've seen
challenge account.
Yeah. $500 challenge account, $500 to $1 million challenge account. And
I actually love challenge accounts, but yes,
this is, well, you'll see, as you see my tag, small account challenge, but
the sack.
Hit
us with the sack, Troy.
Don't do that. The thing I can't. Yeah, that threw me off.
So this is the small account challenge. You're going back in time. You got trades that do well on $5,000. What is this trade, Troy?
The small account challenge. Let me finish that thing. The small account challenge thing was basically saying like you can do $500, right, and make $1 million. But here's the problem: $500. How they're doing it is like they're using like $500 every trade.
Yeah,
and you get to 520. It's like $520 every trade. That's how you get to $1 million in 2 weeks. So that these little boys can show off their Twitter graph and get a couple more subscribers. But anyway, I digress. So this is the idea of saying, what happens if you had $5,000, but you didn't use all of that $5,000? If you were still trying to be a risk manager, and that's what it's about. It's about a small account trader learning to be a risk manager. Because if you can do that with a small account, you'll have the tools in place when you have more money to not lose that money. And people don't realize that. I'm going to talk about the trade here in a second, but last point, people don't realize that it does not matter if you have $5,000 or $5 million. If you're bad at trading and you don't have the right psychology, if you can't trust data, if you're always on your own whim and emotion and things like that, the amount of money you have does not matter. You will lose it. That's the key of it.
Right.
So we're about trying to make risk management one of the keys in this. And so one of the chief ways you do risk management is you allocate a smaller amount of percentage per trade. This is why Dan Sheridan is on this program, is that as a mentor, my options mentor, this was the number one thing he drilled into me, is that you don't put 80% into a trade, And my dumb butt would have been, I've been like, well, this trade makes a $40 million.
Yes. Yes.
So shout out Dan. But anyway,
Dan.
So this is a straddle, and you can look at, if you're new to options, you can look up what a straddle is. We're not going to get into that, but just say this is a straddle. You're buying the 50 delta put 0 day at 9:35. But I've made a change. And at 12:30 p.m. Interesting. And I'm buying the call, the 50 delta at 9:35 and 12:30 p.m. And this is shout out Steven, I believe. He did this. He made that change. And so when you look into this here, he does it twice. Twice. So you're buying 2. And this, I will say, he actually was more conservative than I am, because I think, Steven, you had 1 on there. I'm still allocating 5% per trade. So 10% a day. Way too high. Way too high, but I'm just showing you this. I'm just showing the equivalent of it.
You can feel that 32% drawdown. That's a huge drawdown for a lot of people. Huge
drawdown. So what is the kicker? I did a little different overnight move down, but same concept as Steven. Steven had it overnight based on percentage. I like to use 0.02. That's my personal. That's a little hack. And
there you go.
Shout out Amy. I think maybe Amy and I talked.
I think she did, and the data has shown that actually 0.01 to 0.02 Might be worth doing 0.02.
Yeah, try 0.02 next time you look at it. So VIX overnight move down 0.02. Shout out Amy, and you get out at 359. Now we're gonna spend the rest of the time, and we're gonna look at something that's really, really important for backtest, and then we're gonna call it a day. So I can look at this calendar that I already took off and see what the profit would be all day long. Paralyzed. Anyway, so this is really interesting. You take this off at 359. But one of the things, if you're new to this and you're listening to this and be like, well, these guys are full of crap. They're sitting here being like, oh, my data's good. You know, their data, and you'll see this in the Discord, it is subjective. It's an objective subjective. And what do I mean by that? There are trades that work well within time spans of windows of time. So you say 5-minute time, right? And you say, okay, well, one's better than the other, right? And then you have, but they're all good, and that validates it. And I'm going to show you that this test actually is a good trade, good test, because we're going to look at the exit time real quick, and we're going to look and show that this wins within this 10-minute window from 350 to 4, basically. And the MAR changes, but the trade is validated even more in my mind, because you can take it off at any time frame and it still wins in this 10-minute period. Now, what happens is a lot of people, and we'll get to this in a second, they find the perfect one and they say, if you don't put it on this minute, it's not a good trade. Like, it won't work. And I would say, I would just mirror the language to say, listen to what you just said. If it doesn't go on at this minute, it's a bad trade. Maybe there's something to that idea that it's not a good trade.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I know MOC matters. I know there are certain minutes in the day that matter.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they don't matter, but I'm saying in general with your trading, try to find trades that
they don't have magic minute disease.
That's exactly right. They don't have magic.
Very suspicious of yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Magic minute disease, maybe. Troy, this is fantastic. Shout out to the O community. Shout out to the names mentioned earlier. You guys are awesome. This is, I mean, if you think about how powerful this concept is in a backtest, we could do a whole week on this idea. Love it.
Well, let's keep going because
it's 9:18.
My calendar. I know. Well, give me 2 minutes. This is important. I think, and I think
2
it's
minutes
good
in heaven
to look at it. So I want to just show you this real quick. So this is 359. Okay.
Yes.
I want you to look at the MARs. This is 3.9 at 359, 358, 3.8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
357, 4.1.
Same.
Right.
Capture rates all the same, 17-ish%.
356, 4.1. 355, 2.6. Sorry. 354, 2.5. 353, 2. 352, 2.7. So what is happening here? What is happening? Well, what I would say is that is a good trade. You can get out at the end of the day and you've won. That just means in my mind that the data is valid.
That's right.
Because again, think about what you're doing for a second. This is a long straddle. The prices are moving wildly each minute, each second of that last day, depending on where you're at. And so the fact that in that 10-minute, you can have a lot of confidence. Now, why didn't I save it? You say, okay, well, you sent me the one that I think I sent the one that's the 3.9. Why didn't you send the best one? Why didn't you send the 4.1? The reason I didn't send the 4.1 is because I wanted to teach you that it doesn't matter. Like, there are trades like that where you need to, if you can get from a 3.9 to a 4.1, but just think critically for a second. Just think critically. This is real life trading. It's not a game. So you might get a 4.1 in real life. You might get a 3.2 in real life. It's still a good trade. We've said this. Any trade over 2 is worth it.
With a good allocation over a long period of time.
Yeah. So,
and this has almost 500 examples.
Yeah. So anyway, I think again, shout out Stephen. We'll keep going. Again, we might look at SPY, we might look at Qs, we might look at SPX and things like that. But the idea of keeping that small account, how do you do it in a safe way? And I think we're getting there. So, guys, any parting words? Dan, I mean, trading small has been like your heart cry for as long as I've listened to you.
Well, and it'll always be, because it's, any craft, which is all this is, right? It's a craft like everything else, making fettuccine Alfredo or whatever. And it just, if you can stay small enough and you enjoy what you're doing, you'll get better at it. Maybe not at the pace you want to, but you'll get better. And I think staying small, understand, and also understanding these strategies inside and out. I think if Troy and Matt didn't understand these strategies inside and out, it's tough to kind of go into a back, you could still tweak the back test, but I think the more powerful combination is somebody who understands it, right? Understands the strategy a bit, right? And go back test, right? Because you can see, why is lowering the volatility minimum 0.02? Why does that help? There's reasons for that. It's not just I stumbled upon it. I mean, it's okay, how does volatility affect a long straddle? So I think now what I learned from this back test today is the different times. I wouldn't have thought of that. I think that is pretty good, that the staggered times you're kind of scaling in. Troy, is that where Steven came in those or helped?
Shout out Steven. Yeah,
very good on that. And that's where I think, you have the knowledge of the strategy, and then you bring this in. So yeah, stay small, practice the craft, and over time you're going to get better, right? And
that's what the goal is, and the getting better without losing all your money. So that's the
live to play another day. That was the battle cry from the pits. I'm going to go home 10,000 deltas long, and then the guy next to you would say, "Do you want to be working at the shoe store? Do you want to come back here tomorrow?" He says, "I'm going to get neutral. I don't want to go to the shoe store. I want to come back here at this job."
Do you want to last thing, shout out not using suntan lotion. When I go to the Florida, I never use suntan lotion. My wife kills me, and she says, "I'm going to kill you and murder you if you don't do that." And this is why. For a day, I have a beautiful tan. I'm a great tanner. Many people have said that I tan unlike any other. But here's what happens after a day. You can see this. The leprosy starts coming. So just shout out for not using. Shout out suntan lotion.
Shout out
on that note, have a great day, guys.